I would now like to go into the history of sexuality and then say something about the specific problems that women and men experience nowadays in their sexual self-expression. Much has happened in the area of the sexual. At its core, sexuality carries a great potential of light, but because of that, there is also the potential for great misuse. The history I wish to speak of is one of the power struggles between men and women. This history is ancient and actually began at the time when the extraterrestrial galactic empires started to interfere with life on Earth. Before that, Earth was a kind of paradise, a Garden of Eden in which beauty and innocence prevailed. We will not discuss this era here, but will simply note that you are in the end phase of a power struggle that is much older than the 5,000 years of written history. In the last stage of this history, men clearly played the role of perpetrator and oppressor, but it was not always so. There have been times in which the woman was much more powerful in the public as well as the private domain of life. She oppressed the male energy as well, in cruel and sadistic ways. Woman is not naturally the oppressed or subdued sex, you know, nor is she by definition the most loving sex. Your stereotypes of women as sweet but powerless, and of men as tough but insensitive, say more about the last phase of the above-mentioned history than about men and women as such. There have been times predating written history in which matriarchal societies were regarded as standard. In those times, women also used their energies in a destructive way, being disrespectful of the individual life force and creativity in each human being. There was a time when women had power over men. Women controlled and manipulated men by using the powers of emotion and intuition that they have a natural affinity with. They also used their psychic abilities to control men. For example, there were sacrifices and rituals where men were tortured and killed. I want to stress for your official history that this aspect draws a one-sided picture of the relation between men and women. The oppression of woman by man has been evident for the whole period covered by your written history, but the grudge and hatred that men have displayed, and may still display, against women has not come from nothing. In addition to the cultural traditions and habits that influence them, there are also deep emotional wounds in the collective male soul that stem from a much older era. Without going into detail about this era, I would like to invite you to feel for yourself whether it is possible that you experience this. For women, the question is, can you imagine that you exerted power over men once and that you successfully tried to control their energy? And for men, the question is, can you imagine that this took place on a large scale and that you were the weaker sex? Maybe you will receive certain images or fantasies by asking this question inside. Let your intuition show you and watch the emotions that surface. This may be surprising. Within the collective male, soul hatred and resentment has arisen because of this ancient history. This has come out in oppression of the female energy in the area of politics, but also in the area of religion, particularly through the church. The idea that sexuality is sinful or at best a necessary evil is a male line of thinking that was influenced by hatred and grudges resulting from the repression of male sexuality in another era. Male sexuality was at that time considered to be an instrument for procreation without respect for the feeling side of men and the emotional ties between a father and his children. Often children were raised by the mother in separation from the father, and hardly any attention was paid to what the father thought and wanted. Important values were passed on through the mother figure, and the inferiority of men was one such value. Man was a workhorse rather than an equal partner. In addition to the church being a bulwark of frustrated male energy, the world of science also displays hostility to the female energy. Although science and religion are in many respects natural enemies, they are united in their resistance to the intuitive, flowing aspect of the female energy. The church dogmas are rigid and stifling, but the scientific method is limiting too, in another manner. While the impetus behind modern science was enlightening and innovative in the desire to dethrone false authority, it has gotten stuck in a narrow kind of rational thinking that doesn't allow the female energy to participate. Scientific thinking is analytical and logical, but it does not open up enough to the imagination and to extrasensory, intuitive sources of observation. The aversion that many scientists have to the paranormal and to anything that cannot be explained by rational reasoning is, however, partly due to a soul memory of pain and humiliation, dating back to a time when psychic powers were abused by women and were used against them as an instrument of manipulation. I speak of this ancient history because I would like to make clear that in the battle of the sexes, there are ultimately no offenders and victims, no good guys and bad guys, because you all have been both. It has been a struggle between the male and the female energies in which these energies became opposites, whereas they originally were complementary to each other. In this day and age, both men and women are invited to join forces again and to rediscover the joy and honor of the original dance of female and male. Essentially, the female energy is leading and inspiring, while the male energy is serving and protecting. The female energy is the inspiration behind any creation. The male aspect takes care of the manifestation in form and action. Both energies work through every human, through every individual, whether male or female. Whether you are a man or a woman is not really relevant. It is the balance and relationship between both energies within you that counts.